All right, I see the red light on, which means we're online. It's 7:01. Looks like everybody's ready. Okay. I will call to order the Newton Planning Board public meeting for Tuesday, February 8th, 2022. And I'd like to start, if you please, with a salute to the flag. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Hey, welcome everybody. Before I open the first public hearing, just a little bit of business. Because we have masks and we're partly remote, whenever you speak, I'll have to have you come to the podium and please state your name. I think that's all you need. If you're representing somebody, I'll have you do that. Okay. I'd like to open the public hearing. Joseph and Amanda Spence of Newton, New Hampshire request a public hearing for a two-lot subdivision at 37 to 39 Amesbury Road, Newton, New Hampshire. The property is referenced as tax map 16, block 4, lot 1-1.
Point of order, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Do we need to appoint?
Thank you. He's here so much, I think he's a full board member. I'd like to appoint Mr. Marchand and play as a voting member in the place of Mr. White for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, actually, just a minute, because what I like to do is I like to just go through with the circuit rider, make sure we have a completed application, and then we'll take jurisdiction if that's the case, and then I'll bring you in. It makes things go a lot smoother that way.
Perfect, thank you.
So, Jen, if you could, I did get your letter, but if you could just go through what you said for the benefit of the public.
Sure. So I did review this subdivision plan. The only items are that the plan set that was originally posted, the monumentation locations weren't shown, and I know that the applicant's aware of that and was going to put it on the plans that he was bringing this evening. It's a very minor, although important, item. So I do think the application is complete. They did submit one waiver request to not do the soils and wetlands in the back portion of the property, which is a fairly typical waiver to be granted and reasonable on larger lots like this. So I think that's a reasonable waiver to grant. And the only suggested items I did have in here besides your standard conditions of approval are that the town attorney actually review the two easements for the driveway and the sightline that I'm sure Charlie will get into and explaining exactly why those are put in place, but that would be the one recommendation beyond typical conditions. I do know that you heard from the building inspector, at least he had the chance to review it. And if there are any comments that were provided by the fire department, I think it would be great to consider those, but I did not see any that came through, so.
Okay. I did get one thing from the fire chief, and well, why don't we go ahead and, if this is a completed application, can I have a motion to take jurisdiction?
I'll make a motion to take jurisdiction.
I'll second.
Annie did the second, and if you could call the roll, Jim?
Yep.
Mr. Andrews?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Lavoy?
Aye.
Mr. Moran?
Aye.
Ms. Collier?
Aye.
Mr. Marchand?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Okay, and the first thing we need to do is accept the waiver. And I'm just going to ask the board, do we have enough information in the written form to go ahead with a waiver vote, or would you like to hear from the applicant?
Like to hear from the applicant.
Okay. All right, I'm going to hand it over to you, sir.
Does everybody have a plan copy? Or some, by 17? Do you have some?
I think we should all.
I think they all should have copies. Yes. has heavy. This country, they were picking music, and there were times a lot of jazz bands, and we weren't recording it at all.
Who is that?
Now it's going on.
Barbara?
Hey, Barbara, is that, could you mute, please? Could you mute, please, Barbara?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All set?
Yes.
Okay, to introduce myself, Charlie Silch from SEC and Associates. And if you're having any trouble hearing me through the mask, just let me know, and I'll try and go a little slower and talk a little louder. So whatever you guys need. But here tonight, on behalf of the property owners, George Moore and Robert Moore, here behind me, if you have any questions for me, as well as the applicant, Joe and Amanda Spence, who are also with us tonight. And this is for their subdivision application for property located at 3739 Amesbury Road. I'm sure you've all had a chance to look at it. And as I go through it, if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt, but I'll just kind of give you a quick rundown of what we're looking to do here. So the subject property is 21.44 acres in size. It has 390.88 feet of frontage on the south side of Amesbury Road. The lot was subdivided from the existing house lot, which is abutting tax lot 16-4-1, which is also owned by the Moores, and that was done in December of 1982. So big parcel was broken off from the house lot back in 82. So the property itself, in its entirety, is located completely within the residential A zone. It's completely undeveloped, and it's wooded throughout. So no development, nothing on there, no old structures or anything like that. So when we first looked at this, come to realize that when this property was created in 1982, it was done so without the benefit of receiving a driveway permit from NHDOT District 6, which is a requirement for any state roadway, Amesbury Road being a state road. So knowing the property a little bit, we knew that it might be a bit of an issue looking for a adequate access point on this frontage. As you can see, it's a long sweeping curve along that roadway. So after we completed the existing conditions plan, we basically looked at where we could come in off of Amesbury Road for adequate access to this site. And there is one particular point that with some clearing and regrading, clearing some of the brush and trees and some regrading along the frontage, so we could meet the site distance requirement that the state has. Pretty straightforward site distance requirement. What they're looking for is that you see a point 3 foot 9 inches, 400 feet away from your driver's eye point of 3 foot 9 inches up from the roadway. So you're gonna be able to see a straight line both directions that way. So we had that one particular point, and so what we did at that point was, whereas we didn't have a DOT permit, we submitted a concept plan with some sightline information, submitted to DOT. DOT got back to us fairly quickly on it. They said they were in agreement that the entrance point chosen could be a permitted point, but they had one request for us, whereas they knew the Moores still owned the house lot next door, and that their driveway, which is an old kind of semicircular driveway that was built way back when the house was built back in the, how old is the house? Probably 1740. So it's been there for a long time, and things were more of a cart path, not so much of a roadway along there. So they asked if we would consider eliminating that driveway and tying it into this proposed driveway. That way they'd eliminate one unsafe driveway and bring it into a safe location here. So instead of what we were originally looking for was a shared driveway for 2 lots, they asked if we could make it a shared driveway for all 3 of the lots. So we complied, we sent up a new set of plans, and currently DOT is pretty much all set with that. Just waiting for us to get through this process with the planning board, and then we'll have to record the plans and follow up with recording the deeded sightline easements and the shared driveway easement. So we have an attorney working on that right now.
One quick question.
Sure.
The application for driveway permit that you submitted,
Yes.
And is this the one, or is this the original one?
That's probably the original one.
Okay, yeah, okay, I just want to make sure, because it says access to 2-lot.
Yep. So
Okay,
when we get the actual approval from DOT, it'll be for the 3 lots shared.
Okay.
Yep.
So I just bring that up because, so right now, the building department doesn't know about the 3-lot,
Correct.
and potentially the fire department doesn't know about the 3-lot.
Fire department knows about it.
Oh, they do?
They do, yep.
I'd like to
So we
hear
had a
that.
chance to meet with them as well.
Perfect.
So let me just kind of direct your attention to sheet 2, because now that we've got through DOT, or at least got some agreement from DOT, we've turned our attention to the actual subdivision. And so what the proposal is pretty straightforward, is we want to subdivide tax lot 16-4-1-1, which is the large tract here, into 2 single-family residential building lots. Proposed 16-4-1-1A, that'll be 1.78 acres in size, and that'll have 195.3 feet of frontage. And that is the lot that will contain the shared driveway. So the shared driveway comes in through that one and basically branches off to the existing house lot and the new larger lot on the left. And then so the other lot, which is the remaining land, 16-4-1-1, that'll be 19.66 acres in size, and that'll have 195.58 feet of frontage. We basically just split the frontage of the whole frontage area. It didn't really make any difference to favor one over the other, so we just kind of split the frontage on that. So both the lots, let me just turn over to sheet 4, which kind of shows you the existing topography and soils and wetlands and all that. That's sheet 4. So as you can see, in the front of the lots, we provided test pits. We have our 4,000 square foot receiving areas. Well radiuses are shown there. We've got a building envelope, all of that, basically right in off the roadway. We did enough soils in that area and far enough back to prove that the lots meet all your lot size requirements in regards to soil-based lot sizing as well as your zoning lot sizing requirements. So pretty generous building envelopes, nice buildable areas for both lots right up front. So there are some wetlands out here. Our soil scientist, Tim Forda, delineated the wetlands for us. As you can see, I'll just kind of point it out here. And let me grab my handy-dandy cat toy. Right there, we've got a fairly good-sized pocket of wetland on the back of the smaller lot. It kind of spills over to the other larger lot. And then we have a small pocket right here in the far right-hand corner of that larger lot. And then that's pretty much it. There is complete access all the way to the backland without any sort of wetland crossing, so you could actually access the back of the property without that. But for now, we're showing the buildable areas up at the front area of both of these lots with test pits. So there is no wetland impact associated with this. The only 2 state permits required is DOT, which is basically conditionally approved, I would say at this point, pending recording of the plans. And then state subdivision, which is only required for one of the lots. Anything under 5 acres requires state subdivision approval. So lot 1A is required to have state subdivision approval, and we also obtained that. So we have state subdivision approval for that one lot. So one thing I would like to mention, I kind of alluded to here, is that Mr. and Mrs. Spence may want to build further back out on the lot. So what Joe and Amanda would like to do here is keep the larger lot and sell the smaller lot. Keep the larger lot for themselves. They want to build on it. And so one of the things that we had discussed early on is where to build on this. And, you know, the easiest thing to do is to provide an area in the front of the lot. As you can see, we've got a nice generous building envelope, good soils, all that. But they may at some point change their mind and want to build out in the back of the lot. And so that's why we already met with the fire chief. As you know, Newton has some requirements for driveways that are in excess of 150 feet or so. They want it built to basically NFPA standards. And also, I think you'd be looking for the house to be sprinklered at that point too, for the sake of safety. So that's not a problem. The only thing that we've recommended to the fire chief, and he seemed like he was quite amenable to it, is rather than trying to build this driveway here to NFPA standards, which is 20-foot paved, not paved surface, but a 20-foot traveled way. Right now, we're showing about a 12 to 15-foot driveway here. And they also have some radius requirements and some other things that you have to consider. It would be easier if we had, right here, there's the existing Woods Road access that comes in here. If this driveway is constructed to serve the lot, what we could do is basically create that as an emergency access, 20 feet wide, and then they could bring their driveway up into this area here if they desire to do so. And so we could do a gated access, and then from this point here, this would all be 20 feet wide for NFPA standards. So in case of an emergency, probably some sort of a knock box type of lock here, and they could just come in and access the house. Right now, not sure if that's what we want to do. May wind up building out front, but we just want to make sure that everybody knew there is potential for a longer driveway and maybe building further out on the back of the property. There's no other right-of-ways or access to this backland. As you can see, go back one sheet. Pretty much subdivision is built all the way around it.
Right.
The west side, over on the east side, those are all existing house lots. And then all this land back here is part of the fishing game.
Yes.
Yeah, we own all that land back here. So there are no existing right-of-ways or access to the property, so the only way of developing the remaining would be either coming through with the roadway here, which I don't really see as a viable solution, or maybe someday perhaps someone grants a right-of-way through here. But for now, it's one house lot, and that's all we're proposing, just one house lot here. So with the fact you already accepted jurisdiction, I can probably get past that. And then we do have the one waiver. Like I said, we did enough, we provided enough soils, wetlands, test bidding on the front of the large lot. We do have topo that runs back quite a ways on that lot, so we elected not to continue mapping. There was really no need for it. So our waiver is for soil-based mapping and wetland mapping on the remaining portion of that property. But like I said, we provided more than enough to meet and exceed all the lot sizing requirements. Any questions?
Well, first, I'd like to have the board address the waiver request. So, any comments, questions on that? Or Jennifer, too?
Yeah, just my one comment is that if they were to choose to build in the back of this larger lot, that they would have to still comply with all the wetland setbacks and any other relief that they may need if they chose to build back there. But at this point, that's not the proposal or where the planning board has jurisdiction, so.
Yeah, that's my only, or the one concern. If I knew there wasn't ever any thought of building back then, I think it would be an easy request. So then it's, if we grant the waiver, I believe we'd have to have some kind of a condition. And I'm just thinking aloud here,
So-
but
I think,
So Mike, in that instance, if they were to want to choose to build their house in the back of the larger lot, they still have to comply with your wetland setbacks. The building department at that time, if there was thought that there were wetlands in the vicinity where they were wanting to build, could have a wetland scientist go out and flag the wetlands to ensure that they are not within your setback.
okay. Yeah, I understand it wouldn't, would the wetland setback completely take the place of the waiver that we're granting? Because that's doing a little
No,
bit more.
the waiver that you're granting is just whether or not the wetlands are flagged and shown on this subdivision plan. It does not give anyone relief from not complying with your wetland
Okay.
regulations.
that's basically what I was going to say.
Okay.
Where it's under the, we're reviewing it for a subdivision, not necessarily compliance with wetlands or building.
Yeah, so there's no need, because they're not building on that back lot, to have to produce it, but once they do initiate to build on that back lot, then they would have to
Well, I
come
guess
up
they're
with-
not even proposing to build any, we're not reviewing
Right.
Yeah, that's not, a-
building
if we,
the subdivision.
we're only talking about it because of the waiver request.
Well, if we did elect, if Spencer did elect to build out back, and it's not to the very, very back of the property. The area that we're looking at right here, we did a couple of test pits.
Right.
There's no wetland impact to get there. This area may be wetlands here.
Uh-huh.
So the onus will be on us to go out there and map that prior to even attempting to put together a septic system design, because that would have to be forwarded to the building department for their review and make sure that it would comply with all your local ordinances and setbacks.
Okay. Any more,
Has Conservation reviewed this?
they were notified. I have to go with the assumption that if I don't hear anything back, they didn't have anything to add.
But I guess we're looking at is lines on a paper for a subdivision.
Yes.
So we're not really approving driveway locations or,
Right, if it wasn't for the waiver request, I wouldn't even be really talking about this too much.
Okay.
But, okay. Any other questions, comments on this? Anything, Barbara, I think you're still there.
No, I don't have any questions on the waiver. I'm fine with that.
All right, so if I could have a motion to grant the waiver from subdivision requirement 8.1.5 G and K, wetland delineation and HISS soil mapping for the area designated, I'm not sure how to best describe that area, but the backland.
This is Barbara. I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay. When you're ready, Jim?
Mr. Andrews?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Lavoy?
Aye.
Mr. Moran?
aye.
Ms. Collier?
Aye.
Mr. Marchand?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Okay, so let's move on to the basic subdivision application. And are there any questions, initial questions from the board before I open it up to the public?
I have something. This is Barbara.
Yes, go ahead, Barbara.
Oh, I'm looking at the note number 13 that's on the cover sheet
Okay,
about should the owner of the proposed lot 16411 elect to build beyond the area dedicated as the building area, as shown on this plan, additional review and approval shall be required by the Town of Newton Fire Department. I think that note on the cover sheet needs to be also on sheets 2 and 3 that are going to be the recorded sheets. And if there's going to be a new deed for this lot, I think that note should be on the deed too.
okay. I definitely agree that that note should be on anything that's recorded. Jen, do you have any comments on requiring it to be in the deed?
I don't think it being in the deed honestly does a lot. I think having it be on the subdivision plan is the better place to put it.
Okay, so on the recorded plan, but not necessarily on the deed?
Yeah, I think that would be sufficient.
Anybody else on that?
Trying to word this correctly. Are we specific to residential structures, or is it for any and all buildings?
Oh, you mean that note?
That note. So if the applicant builds their house close to the road and then wants to, I don't know, there's 19 acres, wants to put a barn or something. I'm not sure how the fire department feels.
It still requires a building permit, so it still has to get fire approval as well, no matter if it's a barn, an industrial storage complex, or a house.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's an accessory building, may not require the access to it to be NFPA standards, and that's fine.
Right.
But we have no objection to having to obtain approval for any sort of a building out there.
Okay. So leave it, so it'd still be just elect to build beyond and build. Do we need to tighten that up, or is it just build anything?
I was
Okay.
almost doing the opposite of making sure it wasn't too restrictive.
Uh-huh, but yeah, okay. I'm going to open it up to the public now, if you'd like, and then we'll come back to it. Sometimes we get questions.
thank you.
So does anybody from the public wish to address this, pro, con? You don't have to, but if you, I'd love to hear from you.
I'm Robert Moore. I live at 41 Amesbury Road.
Okay,
My wife is here too, Donna Moore. So we've lived there for over 18 years, and my parents owned the house before us. They lived there about 20 years. And our driveway goes all the way around the house, and there's two access points from the driveway to Amesbury Road. And although, you know, in almost 40 years, we've never had an accident, but it is a, say, non-compliant driveway with today's standards. And this proposal from the Spencers, you know, with a new driveway access, we'd be closing off our two driveways and rebuilding the stone wall in front of our house. So I think that would be a great improvement to the town of Newton.
okay.
And it would provide better safety, and I'm all in favor.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I have a question about the width of the driveway. I see where you have...
Okay, sir, sorry, you have to address us and,
Steve Roberts, 59A Amesbury Road,
okay?
and my wife Judy. I notice on here, there's the sight lines. I can understand why that would be better. It would be better for you and anyone coming down Amesbury Road.
It needs to turn
Sir,
around.
sir, could you,
But
sorry,
what-
you have to address us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'd like to know, what is the width of the driveway going? I see where the sight lines are and everything. I don't understand what the width is and how far back it comes.
Okay, so you're asking what the width of the driveway is, both off of Amesbury Road and the access, and then the second question would be how far back from Amesbury Road? Okay, I know it's, I'm gonna let the engineer, because it's,
It's actually on the profile, if you go down,
is it on the last page there?
it's station 0+00. I believe, if I'm reading this correctly, it's a 15-foot wide shared driveway right at the crest. I'm not sure if you can confirm that.
Well, there is a point where it has to meet the fire code, correct?
Yeah,
So what's the width of the driveway coming in off of Amesbury Road,
it's
roughly?
15 feet.
15 feet wide.
1 foot shoulders,
Okay,
so 17 feet.
okay. And when it goes, the access to both houses the same?
Actually, you can probably make it as narrow as 12 feet, like a typical driveway if you wanted to.
Okay.
But I would recommend holding the 15 feet all the way.
Okay. And then the other question the gentleman asked is roughly how far back are those driveways from Amesbury Road?
I would say just, you're looking at about 25 to 30 feet where it splits
Okay,
from the edge of the travel way.
okay. Does that answer your question, sir?
I think so, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the public wish to speak? Okay, thank you. Bring it back to the board for any further questions.
This is Barbara. I just have one question.
Okay,
I was wondering where it shows the culvert on the driveway that's going to 1641. Is that just for topographical, or is that for drainage, or is there actually any water there? Is that why there's a culvert going to be there?
okay. Is that on map 2, sheet 2?
It's 6 of 6.
It's on sheet 4, and it shows on lot 1-1A, and it says
Oh, there I am.
culvert.
I
So,
saw that.
to
And I was
answer the
wondering if
question on
it's
that?
just topographical or if there was actually water, because I didn't see any water denoted there.
No, it's excessively well-drained soils up there and well-drained soils, so there's really no ponded water right there. But what we're creating when we come in with this driveway is you've got to come in off of the roadway at a negative slope. State doesn't want any water spilling out of your driveway into the roadway. Obviously, that creates ice conditions, hazardous conditions. So we're coming off at a negative slope off of Amesbury Road. And then to hook off to the left to go to the existing house, you actually have a little bit of a cut there into the bank before you get back up. It's very mild, it's very slight slope, but it creates a ditch line on the side of the driveway adjacent to Amesbury Road. And whenever you create a ditch line, even if it doesn't intercept groundwater, it's always going to grab some storm water. So didn't want to leave it trapped there, didn't want it spilling over the driveway, so we threw a culvert in there, and that'll take care of that little bit of storm water. I wouldn't expect there to be much, and it doesn't have to be a very big culvert. You could probably even get away with a 6-inch, but I want to throw a 12-inch in there, easier to maintain, and it clears debris through a little bit quicker. So we did a 12-inch culvert there, and just for that little bit of ditch line and stormwater that you may encounter.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Sills.
Welcome.
And just to follow on that, so say this was, I don't know if it's going to be paved or dirt, but it's going to be essentially impervious surface.
Yeah, I mean, once you get the gravel compacted, it becomes
Yeah.
relatively impervious.
So where, I understand the culvert there, where is the, it looks like the flow that comes off of the driveways is just going to go parallel to Amesbury Road?
In what areas?
Well, I'm on sheet 6 right now. I'm just looking at essentially where the access from Amesbury Road is. And then I'm just kind of visualizing where the flow from all the different driveway aspects.
Okay, again, both driveways, the one that splits to the right, which will go to the big lot, there's a little bit of ditch line that gets created here. So as this driveway comes down into it, that'll disperse, it'll sheet flow down into the lot.
Okay.
And then this lot here, like I said, we created a bit of a ditch line that kind of comes back towards the shared entrance, and that one we want to get through the culvert, and that'll sheet flow down into the ultimately into the wetlands back here. There's quite a ways to go before you get to the wetlands though.
Right. And that's something that the state permits look at. My issue is anything going to flow into Amesbury Road, but that's essentially what the state's looking at, correct?
Yeah, they don't want that. They don't want any water coming off your roadway or your roadway cuts or anything like that.
We're generally lower than the road.
Yeah. Just thinking of that next 100-year flood we have every,
Well, you go a few miles south down is it Amesbury Road or past Attitash Pond in Massachusetts, it's always icy from.
yeah. Any further questions?
There's just an existing wall that's to be removed, it says here. Is that a historic wall, or is that, what's the nature
No,
of that wall?
it's an old retaining wall in front of the, which one are you talking about? There's a section.
So it's on sheet 4. It says it on the, yep, exactly, at the top.
Yeah, this area here, it is an old stone wall, it's an old farm wall along the side of the roadway, but unfortunately, we're gonna have to cut down that bank there. It's kind of strange, there's like this odd bank, it almost looks like kind of like an esker along here. It's just right in here, and it's lower in the backside where we're proposing the driveway. It's about the same elevation on either side, and it rises up about 3 or 4 feet in here. So that's gonna have to come out, and unfortunately, that's where that wall is. So that's gonna have to come out of there to obtain the sight line.
So we lose a little bit of wall there, and then the neighbors rebuild their wall.
Yep.
Did you have something you want to say, or?
No.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I gotta say, as to the wall in front of my house, honestly, it has no historic value. It's not even a well-built stone wall, it's like more like a pile of rubble. And I think a year or so ago, it's real close to the street, and a trailer one Saturday morning going to the refuse center or something hit the wall, and like rocks come out in the street. So a couple of times recently, I've gone out and picked them out of the street, put them back. So, I mean, I've been a builder, a self-employed carpenter my whole life, and now, well, you know, we're antique dealers now. And honestly, that wall has no historic value. And I'm looking forward to doing what they need to have done, you know, removing that and building a good, structurally sound, nice-looking wall, as it is in front of my house.
And everybody gets to see it when we go to the dump.
Yeah,
But we can't call it the
You
dump.
must know what it looks like.
Okay,
It's not pretty.
thank you, sir. Any other comments, questions?
I don't think so.
So Jen, if you could help me on this before I move it for a vote, just go over actually, I have a couple things I want to read. Thank you very much for coordinating and talking with the fire chief. That makes things so much easier. I did get one correspondence early on. This was dated January 14th. I assume you've spoken to him after that.
Yep.
It just says, warning, the petitioner must be clearly made aware prior to any meeting that they must meet the, quote, residential fire department access guidelines that fall under NFPA 1 as adopted by the New Hampshire Fire Code. Just putting that in for the record, but I assume that's what you've discussed with him.
It is.
And the access. So I know that sometimes you mentioned the distance sometimes requires a sprinkler system. And I think there may be something in there that if a driveway serves multiple houses,
Yep.
it may bring in some other requirements. So that's not our purview, but that's something that, you know, hopefully you've discussed or you will be discussing. Okay. That was the only other correspondence that I received on this. So what I was asking, Jen, if you could help us with, because you mentioned the two of the conditions, permits, I think they were, but I'll just go over conditions that would be attached to any vote here.
So beyond your regular conditions, which I'll let Jim read off, just a recommendation that the town council review the two easements for the driveway and the sightline as part of your approval. And it sounds like they've already had them drafted up, so that should be a fairly easy process.
Okay, so town council, I had that and I can't find it right now. Oh, okay, yeah. Conditions that town council review the two easements, the driveway easement and the sightline easement. And those would be one of the two of the conditions, as well as our standard conditions. And if you could just read those out for us so we all know.
That's fine. Okay, the standards are set the bounds, supply copies of the recorded deeds, and supply recordable MyLars. Also have the condition of a copy of note 13 from the cover page on the recordable sheet, and town council review of easements.
Okay, of those two easements.
Right.
Okay.
Just one other thing, that all state permits be noted on the recorded plan.
Right,
Yeah.
state and local.
And this is Barbara. I'm not sure if it needs to be on the conditions or not, but when they get the new driveway permit for the 3 lots, we need a copy of that for the file.
Okay. That can, I don't know if that needs to be a condition or if that can be on the side letter. One question for you, sir. You mentioned that if they decided at one point to build further back, you might put in a separate access, gated access.
Yes.
Would that require another state permit?
I think it's something I'd like to bring into the permit that's already currently under review. and make sure that they're amenable to it as well.
Okay. All right. So that would, well, that would fall under the driveway permit then, that's already the easement being recorded, okay. So Jim, do you have all those conditions down? Okay. Does the board need to hear those conditions repeated again?
No.
Okay, can I have a motion to
I'd like to
accept?
make a motion to approve this subdivision with all the applicable conditions that we've talked about.
Okay,
I'll second.
second. Any further comment, questions?
Okay.
You thought it was me.
Oh, no, it was Dennis, it was not Mark.
Sorry, you two, your voices sound
Not
very
good that we
familiar.
sit next to each other.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. Jim, if you could call the roll, please.
Mr. Andrews,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Lavoy,
Aye.
Mr. Moran,
Aye.
Ms. Collier,
Aye.
Mr. Marchand.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. And before I close the meeting, I just want to say thank you very much for the professionalism and for reaching out to the other departments, particularly the fire chief. That makes everything a lot easier. So,
Very much appreciated.
All right.
And thank you very much for your
Okay.
consideration.
thank you. And thank you, sir, for speaking. I always like to hear the public speak. And with that, I will close the public hearing at 7:43.
I think it's the most people we've had in a year.
This past year, yes.
Good one.
Okay, Jim, let me know when you're ready to move on to the other business.
We want to let the audience leave for a minute.
Yeah. I don't think they're aware that we still have a meeting.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, we do have business we have to continue, so if you could please keep it down or exit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, on to board business.
Good
If I
luck.
could have a motion to accept our minutes of the January 25th, 22 meeting.
I'll make a
Mrs.
motion.
Annie, so move? Oh, well, second.
Okay,
I don't want to steal your thunder this time.
Okay. Mr. Andrews,
aye.
Ms. Collier,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Lavoy,
Aye.
Mr. Moran,
Aye.
Mr. Marchand.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. And next, NPREA Manifest, if I could have a motion to pay the NPREA Manifest in the amount of $294.01.
This is Barbara, so moved.
Thank you, Barbara.
Second.
Bob seconded it.
Mr. Andrews,
Aye.
Ms. Collier,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Lavoy,
Aye.
Mr. Moran,
Aye.
Mr. Marchand.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Okay, and that concludes the scheduled board business. Not that we can really bring up anything else, but anything else? I'll just say current things are being handled by select board at this time. And probably next meeting, I'll have an update,
Okay, good.
I just have a general question.
okay?
How many people are going to be left on the board come March?
Yeah,
that
that's a
yet?
good question.
Well, there are 3 people running.
Oh, there are. I did not see that
planning
those,
board?
There are, last
Oh,
thing,
I didn't realize
And there are
that.
3 seats.
yeah, there's 3
Okay.
seats and there are 3 people running.
I got 3 seats.
Yeah, there's,
Yeah.
one running for each position. So the 2 3-year positions that are open, 2 people are running for those, and then that 1 year position, somebody put in for that.
Okay, and that's posted on the website?
It is.
Okay, I'm just behind.
It's on the town website, it's
Yep.
not on the planning board.
Yeah, I have a quick question about jurisdiction with approvals like that. Like forestry cutting and things like that, we have no jurisdiction over that whatsoever.
No.
Yeah, I figured.
Planning boards only have jurisdiction if it's associated with the subdivision or a site plan,
Okay, I
or
figured.
any silviculture.
Yeah. Okay.
So they
I'm
can,
with you, Mark, on that. I'm like,
I was like-
wish we had something in our zoning that would restrict some of the ability to clear cut,
Yeah.
or, rebuilding walls or things like that. I was excited to see the stone wall on there and hope that it'll be a really attractive stone wall. And it seems like they're the kind of people who are going to really treasure having the woodsy area.
I didn't
hate
know
the clear cutting.
I didn't know if the area that like they didn't survey, if we could put no clear cutting back there, but it.
you can
You're talking to somebody who would really like, well, not the forestry, considering I have a tree farm and I do a lot of timber harvesting.
Yeah.
Basically, the state is, nobody has jurisdiction other than wetlands issues.
you can even clear in the wetland,
You can't do that, but outside of a
harvest,
wetland,
I should say.
yeah. Unless it's, like Jen mentioned, unless it's part of a subdivision site plan, once they start clearing for development, then it takes it out of intent to cut from forestry and puts it into a different category which they have to meet different things.
But this is, because of the size of the lot and depending on what they're doing, which is surprising because I personally looked at this land when it came up for sale like
Yeah.
6 months ago. If they propose to develop more than 100,000 square feet, it will go in front of DES, even for residential. Is that true, Jen?
Yep, anything.
I don't
And
really
it's
deal
not
with
even just
residential.
100K, so.
Yeah, so basically 2.25 acres. It will go in front of DES for stormwater management, erosion control, unless it's dedicated select timber harvesting, which is, DES doesn't really have much jurisdiction on.
Yeah, the laws are pretty straightforward on, and you see that a lot where somebody goes in and says, I'm just doing a timber harvest. They do that, and then a couple years later, they go in for the subdivision. But
That is
that's beyond
strategic.
that's beyond the purview of us. But that's a good discussion to have in Conservation Commission, because this was a strategic piece, and be good, maybe they'll put the backland in the conservation easement or something, but we don't need to talk about that anymore. Okay, anything else? Okay, I am going to close the meeting at 7:49. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Good night.
Bye, Barb.
Thank you, guys.